later on with a review of some of the, programs, of course, that, the high points of some of the issues we discussed on Good Morning Nigeria. I am Claire Adelabo Abdul Razak. I want to again welcome you to the last edition of Good Morning Nigeria for the year 2016. Indeed, it is the last for this week, it is the last for this month, and it is the last for the year. And so may I want to be the first to wish you Happy New Year. I beat you to it.
Wait till midnight, Saturday midnight, then you can now wish
I beat you to it, blessing.
Anyway, no problem. I wish you a very eventful 2017, no doubt. My name is Blessing Abu. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's edition of the program, Good Morning Nigeria. As usual, we'll bring to you a regular segment which will come after the review and to come from sports, art and entertainment, so a tidbit from the foreign scene, as well as other juicy things about the weather. The weather is still very much there.
Of course,
okay, let's go over now to the newsroom, and here is Tessie. Waiting to actually usher you into the last part of the news beats on Good Morning Nigeria. Good morning, Tessie.
Good morning, Blessing. Good morning and welcome to the news. I am Tessie Justin Bisong. The Nigerian army says it is subjecting a purported video clip released by Boko Haram terrorist group to further forensic analysis in view of the spurious claims emanating from it. The Nigerian army reiterated that it has captured and occupied the last known stronghold of the terrorist group in the Sambisa forest. A statement by the army's spokesman, Brigadier General Sani Usman Kukasheka, reassured the public that the video is nothing but mere terrorist propaganda aimed at creating fear in the minds of the people and to remain relevant. Consequently, the public is enjoined to go about their normal lawful business, remain vigilant and security conscious. Meanwhile, troops deployed to the southern part of Kaduna ravaged by reprisal killings have intercepted some men in possession of guns and live ammunition around the Kagoma chiefdom in Jama local government area. The DIG Operations Habila Tushak paraded the suspect at the Operation Harmony headquarters in Kafanchan.
Government official at the local level, I'm also going to ask that representative of this general area, Jama local government, wherever they are, they should come over and come up with intelligence that we will use to be able to get to this. But we're not going to live here until there's peace. We're not going to leave any stone unturned. I urge those of you that want to politicize this operation, never again.
And away from security matters, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, has confirmed that rice earlier confiscated by the Nigeria Customs Service this month is not plastic but contaminated rice with microorganisms above permissible limits. The Acting Director General of the agency, Yetunde Oni, made this known at a media briefing in Abuja.
But the rice is contaminated with microorganisms above permissible limit. Hence, the seized rice consignment is unsatisfactory and therefore unwholesome for human consumption. The consignment, upon handover by the Nigerian Customs Service, shall be destroyed.
Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, says the federal government is working with the private sector to make major festivals in the country attractive to domestic and foreign tourists and to leapfrog the event to the top cadre of global festivals. The minister stated this in Offa, Kwara State, at the 2016 edition of the Ijakadi Festival.
We provide the enabling environment for the festival to achieve its full potential.
This administration is committed to providing incentives for investors in the tourism sector and maintaining a peace and secure environment that is essential for tourism to thrive.
And to our next story, the Nigerian Petroleum Corporation has given the Nigerian Television Authority a passback for its transparent, in-depth analysis and coverage of activities in the nation's oil and gas industry. At an interactive session with the NTA management in Abuja, the NNPC Group Managing Director, Dr. Mekanti Baru, solicited collaboration in advocating the protection of installations for maximum benefit of the resources despite the difficult operating environment.
What we've been doing in terms of covering our effort to be as transparent and as open as possible. More campaigns need to be made to bring to the attention of those who are involved with pipeline vandalism to understand that it has several facets. The immediate is loss of production and cost of repairing these facilities. But the long-term effect is even worse. Environmental degradation.
We are very strategically placed, for the NNPC to use us as a vehicle, to propagate its policies, to explain certain issues about its operations, nationwide. Because the oil sector is a very important sector, not only for Nigeria, but the world at large. And Nigeria is a very significant player.
Under Governor-elect Rotimi Akeredolu has reiterated his commitment to build a state economy, resuscitate damaged infrastructure, and restore the hope of indigents when he assumes office. He said this at the inauguration of the Strategic Development and Policy Implementation Committee, Transition and Inauguration Ceremony Committees in Akure.
With an avowed belief that developing Ondo State is a goal worthy of our best efforts.
What I will encourage the committee to really do is to look at all the issues that exist at the moment and find a lot of solutions, provide platform for solutions to them.
The Speaker of the Abia State House of Assembly, Martins Azubike, has been impeached after 20 of the 24 members voted in support of the impeachment. A new Speaker, Kennedy Njoku, has been elected and sworn in to take over at the helm of affairs in the Abia State Legislature. That's the news for now. Blessing and Claire will be back after this break. Stay with us.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
People think it's the ever-changing weather during Harmattan that makes them sick. Actually, it's the germs. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs, including flu.
Does your antiseptic liquid kill the germs that cause flu, diarrhea, typhoid? Dettol does. Dettol provides 10 times more protection versus leading competition. So why take a risk with your loved ones?
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, Ogerola. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins.
Morning Nigeria is a program, if you just tuned in, and it's showing live on the network service of the NTA. For our business report this morning, we have that the Central Bank of Nigeria sells $1 billion to investors in selected sectors of the economy. And the Nigerian Stock Exchange maintains gains Thursday, despite being the poorest performer on the global scale. All the details we'll find out from Leah Katung-Babatunde this morning.
The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has sold about $1 billion in the forward market to clear a backlog of dollars obligations in selected sectors in its largest special auction since a currency peg was removed in June. Traders say outstanding dollar demand was about $4 billion before June, when the 16-month-old peg was removed. Efforts to cut dollar demand have been largely unsuccessful due to low oil prices. Crude sales account for about 90% of Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings. Traders said the central bank told banks to prioritize airlines, manufacturing firms, petroleum products importers, and agriculture sectors. The sectors was hit by the dollar shortage in the auction and sold 30-day and 60-day forwards to at the auction. Nigeria is in its first recession for 25 years, caused by the oil price drop, which has cut the supply of dollars needed to fund imports. The naira traded about 305.25 to the dollar on the interbank market on Thursday and 4.90 a dollar on the unofficial market. From Brexit to Donald Trump to the S&P 500 index worst ever first month, the past year was anything but quiet for investors. In the currency market, it was a particularly bad year for any currency called the pound. The Egyptian version was the worst performer in 2016 as the nation took the dramatic step of allowing it to trade freely in an attempt to stabilize an economy struggling with a dollar shortage and concerns over social unrest. Britain's pound tumbled after Brexit and never recovered. On the other side of the spectrum, digital currency Bitcoin was the best performer this year, rising more than 100% as capital controls in places like China and isolationist rumblings in the UK and US have fueled interest in alternate currencies. The Russian ruble has been rated the best performer of the year as the oil market rebounded. Despite recent unrest, Bloomberg raised Brazil's Ibovespa stock index as the best performer for 2016, while Nigeria's equity market fared worse in the year. The nation's economy is set to contract in 2016 for the first time in more than 20 years. Now, next is a graphic summary of latest figures from the Nigerian Stock Exchange this Thursday. Lastly, vital funding from the European Commission's Humanitarian Aid and Civil Protection Department, ECHO, has allowed the World Food Programme, WFP, to provide cash assistance this year for 13,000 refugees from Somalia, Ethiopia, and Eritrea who live in the Aliade and the Hol camps, and top-up funds provided towards the end of the year allowed WFP to quickly extend this support to 4,000 asylum seekers who recently arrived from Ethiopia. The approach offers flexibility and food choices through a combination of monthly food rations and cash distributions. The refugees receive money transfers provided by ECHO, which allow families to buy the food they prefer at local stores. With support from other donors, WFP also provides monthly in-kind rations of staple foods as well as specially designed fortified supplementary foods for malnourished children and other groups at risk. With business news, I'm Leah Katung-Babatunde.
All right, Leah Katung-Babatunde, thank you for the business news. And coming up shortly will be the newspaper review. That's next.
Thank you very much. You are right in time for the newspaper review. And Bayo Atoebi is unavoidably absent, but Claire and Blessing are here to do the review. Claire.
All right, yes, we'll just start off. We'll just take a look at the trending stories on the front pages of the papers. We have quite a slim one we have this morning. So I'll quickly begin with leadership. Leadership this Friday leads with the story, federal government recovers 40 SUVs from ex-permanent secretary. And that story is on page 5. Federal government recovers 40 SUVs from ex-Palm Sec. It's on page 5. And just to take some of the trending stories a little below the nameplates there, Bagudu's rice revolution saves Nigeria 2 billion naira. Bagudu's rice revolution saves Nigeria 2 billion naira. Details you can find on page 8. And CBN sells $1 billion to clear backlog in biggest dollar sale. Again, turn to page 21 for details. And court sentences district head son to death by hanging. And that's also on page 4. Now, this trending story tucked in there, you can see that story. Shekau's new video, mere propaganda. And this is coming from the Nigerian army. Just a very important story is trending at the bottom of the paper. Senate is pushing for diaspora voting in 2019. There you see it. Senate pushes for diaspora voting in 2019. And other stories, of course, from the inside page. But Blessing, yes, you have Daily Trust.
Yes, I have the Daily Trust with me, and some of the stories you've already pointed out, but I'll still take on some of them. Daily Trust has just below the nameplate, we have Kano police arrest 570 rapists in 2016. That's what you find on page 2. And just beside that, you have the story of the federal government recovery of 40 SUVs from retired permanent secretaries. Those two stories you find on inside pages 2 and 3 respectively. But on the front page there, you have the photograph of children queuing for a free medical checkup at a program organized by the Movement for Islamic Culture and Awareness in Kaduna yesterday. And just below the photograph, other stories, NAFDAC, plastic rice not fit for consumption. Of course, you heard that in part of our news bulletin. The clarification that it's actually not plastic rice, but something said to be above the micro, well, the medical things are stated right there. Suspension, Jibrin seeks secret settlement with Dogara. You find that story on page 21 with the Daily Trust. Forex, import ban, threatening 1 trillion naira customs revenue. That's what you find on page 14. Any more story, Claire?
Yes, we have one from the Daily Sun, a number of stories on the front page of the Daily Sun. And it says, federal government again recovers 40 new SUVs from PAMSEC. That's a trending story in all the papers. But this, it comes with a rider. It says investigation ongoing. And this is coming from the minister. You can see the details there on page 6. Okay, let's again take a look at those stories Blessing talked about. Just earlier on, we saw, of course, the NAFDAC boss, of course, there talking to us about the chemical composition, of course, contained in the rice. Now, plastic rice are stories by Customs and NAFDAC. You can see that on page 6. So it appeared, Blessing, that it's not plastic rice per se, but the issue is with the chemical composition, in the rice, which is, of course, way higher than human consumption and all that. So bad weather stops Buhari's visit to Bauchi. It's on page 13. And federal government to spend 32 billion naira to fight corruption in 2017. It's also there. That you can find on page 9. Now, Southern Kaduna crisis. Church puts death toll on 808. It's also on page 13. But then a big story just beside the nameplate there. This one is on security. Sambisa, military dismisses Shekau's video. You can read all about this on page 8.
Okay, well, finally, before we go, I didn't miss that. It was deliberate. Leading for the Daily Trust is the caption there. Attorney General queries SGF over Northeast funds. That story starts right there but continues on page 5. Attorney General queries SGF over Northeast funds.
All right, I think that's the much we can take, because we have quite a loaded package for us today on our review, the last segment of our review of events, programs that we've discussed here on Good Morning Nigeria. And we'll take a break right now. When we come back, we'll begin the review.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Hello, dear. You've got the first signs of a sore throat.
Yes, and I'm afraid it could be signs of a sore throat.
Don't you worry. Just act immediately, but not with non-medicated throat sweets. Take an expert product. Take Strepsils. Look at what it does to sore throat germs compared to a throat sweet. Strepsils not only stops the germs from multiplying, it even kills them.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, sore throat. Stop a sore throat early. Take Strepsils.
It's that time of the year when we appreciate all those that meant so much to us. Our sponsors, our clients, government at all levels, corporate bodies, advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, political parties, business, and above all, you, our esteemed viewer. Together, we made 2016 great. Together, we shall make 2017 even greater. That's why we say thank you. Merry Christmas and prosperous New Year.
All right, thank you for joining us. And if you've just tuned in, you're right on time to start our review. Last, of course, review of events, issues that were discussed on Good Morning Nigeria in the year 2016. Now, as he said in local parlance, like joke, the naira started exchanging from 100 and something naira to the dollar to over 400 naira to the dollar, that is in the parallel market, and of course over 300 naira to the dollar in the formal market. That was the thrust of the issue on the assault on the naira. And we had guests like Professor Ken Ife and Professor Garba Ibrahim Sheikha to, of course, on that panel. Blessing, you anchored with Kinsley.
Yes, I did.
All right.
That's it.
In your opinion, is the state of the rate of the naira today against major currencies, particularly the US dollar?
Well, we all know that the origin or the source of the concern on Forex has been the decline in the revenue from oil. And despite what the CBN governor has said, we now came to a flexible policy, which is a very good policy, to be honest, except that we needed time for that policy to kick in. For example, what needs to kick in is the FDI, the foreign direct investment component. There's absolutely no doubt that the debt flows are going to continue to happen. But don't forget, as they are coming in, the portfolio investment, they're also going out. So they tend to cancel each other. But the real respite will come when investors begin to bring in their money into the country. And they too need time. They want to see 2-3 months for the Forex, to see Forex stability. And it's not, matters are not being helped by the recent MPC meeting of simply hiking the MPR rate to 14%. We rather than just give this whole thing 2-3 months to see whether it settles. So in the end of the day, we are just left with central bank's intervention. And I haven't seen concerted action on dealing with the real trouble, which are the demands for the foreign exchange. CBN has dealt with some part of the demand by delisting 41 projects, 41 items, but it needs to be followed up by getting complementary measures to help it. But it's left there. Then also he hasn't targeted some banks that may be, you know, on the wrong side of the equation. Just to discipline one or two banks, and then they'll stop using. Instead, it is now mopping up liquidity.
Actually, what is happening now is the expected result. And because at the time when dollar is very scarce and you allow naira to determine its value by the market forces, then definitely you know what will happen. And that was why only one day in the operation of the market, that was on 20th June, the value depreciated from 197 to 281. And currently, Central Bank is selling at 313 naira per dollar, and the interbank is selling 350, while the Bureau d'Exchange are selling 370 something. So I think that is anticipated, and I am surprised that the value has not gone down further than it is now, because really the dollar remained very scarce, as Professor has said. And in economic theory, if there is any commodity whose supply is very scarce and the demand is high, definitely the price of that commodity will go up. So I am surprised. I don't even know the magic played to keep the dollar rate at 350 naira or 313 naira. By the central bank, I expect by now it would have been around 1,000 naira. So really, it's pity we are in the situation we are now. The import demand is still very high, and the supply of dollar remained very low, and still the market is operating and is selling at that rate. So really, this is an anticipated result, and we are so lucky that even the value is just as it is now.
I think, first of all, I will not describe it at all as an assault on the naira. If you look back 16 months when we didn't have an interbank market where the rate of the currency was freely determined, and then it's barely been 6 months, 6 weeks actually, since we've gone back to a free market, and it is only expected that you would find that level of volatility or cyclical movement of the currency in any market. That's the way currencies behave. They respond to the levels of the supply and the demand in that market.
What exactly is still pushing this volatility for the naira?
Thank you very much. I agree with Ms. Olaniyan. In total, I think she's been able to very eloquently explain what has happened in the last 6 weeks. And like we said, flexible foreign exchange is not the silver bullet that will deliver stability. We also need complementary things to kick in, which is most importantly confidence. Foreign investors will not come in because you've just opened the forex market. They would like to wait, like she said, and see if indeed you are going to sustain all the stability and all the features that you put in.
I quite appreciate the argument of my colleagues here in terms of justifying why there is volatility in the market. But however, I want to also agree with you that being an operator in the market, what you have described is an assault on the naira. And there is nothing wrong in going to be flexible in a market, but it's expected that the spikes should be up and down. But since the introduction of the flexible exchange rate, what we have noticed in the market, instead of even the rate to come down, it's always going up, 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 up. So that is a misnomer as far as I'm concerned.
It's very obvious that people have not realized that the currency is a commodity. A commodity only sets its prices in the market. Whenever any commodity is being sold, the market will determine what the price will be. I think we are making too much noise about what the value of the naira is. Why should we worry about it? We shouldn't worry about that. The naira will find its value and we'll all be better for it.
Well, did the naira find its value? The tumbling fall kept on, and that was why on the 4th of October, we also took on the issue of the naira again, stabilizing the naira, we titled it.
The exchange rate at the parallel market is some 500 to $1 US. And if you look at the differential between that and what you find at the interbank rate, it's sometimes well over 100 naira, if not more. People are wondering exactly what is driving the price at the parallel market, 500 naira to $1 US.
Kingsley, good morning. Even though you have helped us this morning to identify some of the factors that really put us into this mess. One, like you said, is the falling oil prices, and two is the dependent nature of the Nigerian economy. Three is the inducement from the foreign investors, and four, we have what we call the evil forces. So combination of all these really have not helped the country in maintaining the severity of its own currency. Like you rightly said, our dependence on one commodity, which is the oil, is not really a boom to the country. There are some economies that describe it as a doom because it has not helped us in diversifying our economy, but only made us to be reliant on foreign importation. And this is one of the dog that we found ourselves into. Then currently, if you look at the inducement of the foreign investors, this is an economy that is already running a flexible exchange rate. And we are still insisting that the country should devalue, should depreciate. How do you depreciate in a floating economy?
As we are doing this tactical thing that Alhaji Godebe was saying, I think we were just trying that, one, we will deal with the issue of domiciliary accounts. Number two, we dealt with a number of issues like non-supply of foreign currency. So, for example, our diaspora people could no more bring money into Nigeria at a certain point because you are telling them that there's a control on the limits of the foreign exchange, but also there cannot be any domiciliary account. So almost about 220 billion. About 22 billion which would have come into Nigeria through those remittances had to be halted as an influence. So there are a number of things that brought us to where we are. So it is not just simply the issue of oil. There are some fundamental plays that needs to come into being.
Most of the importers are still rushing into the black market in order to get their supply of the foreign exchange. And so that is what is making the situation worse. But unfortunately, you see, again, Nigerians are still having that, having a very high taste of imported goods. I don't know how long we are going to stop that. Nigerians are still preferring imported commodities rather than the domestically produced commodities. And as such, our import bill still remains very high. These are some of the factors that are still contributing to the depreciation of naira. And like I said earlier, there is no country where we have a complete flexible exchange rate regime. And there's no country where we have a complete fixed exchange regime. It all depends on the circumstances, and it depends on the policy makers and how they run the policies. So really, like I pointed out in our last discussion, it is not just enough to say we are practicing a flexible or floating exchange rate and just allow the market forces to do everything for us. Market forces can never do everything for us. We have to be watching. And like I said, we would have given a target that wouldn't allow naira to depreciate more than maybe 125 or 50 naira per dollar. But if we allow it, I'm certainly sure by the trend going on now, we may reach a point where 1,000 naira will exchange for $1. And I think, like I said, we have to watch our policies. Whenever we think the policies are not working the way we expect them to work, we try and redirect them and do some things in order to adjust or make adjustments.
I think the present situation why we continue to have this depreciation is because people are still confused about what Nigerian currency is all about. If you look at the body language of the monetary authorities and the fiscal authorities, it looks as if they are not shaking hands at all. It looks as if they don't understand themselves. And I'll give you examples. Just before the last MPC meeting, the Minister of Finance was suggesting that the MPR should be reduced. But you find out that nothing happened. And in the statement made by the governor of the central bank, he said that the main problem with our economy and the exchange rate actually lies with the fiscal side not doing what they are supposed to do. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the most important determinant of any exchange rate has to do with the confidence that investors, that foreigners, and those within the economy has on that particular currency. So when you have conflicting figures from those that are in authority, then that confidence wins. People are confused. So when we expect investors to bring their foreign exchange and they are not clear about what will happen to that foreign exchange as a result of the policy framework that happens in the economy, it becomes a problem.
All right, that was the discussion on, of course, stabilizing the naira. Blessing, the very worrisome prediction then was that the naira may exchange, about $1,000 to $1, but that didn't happen. It hasn't happened. The naira has not, is yet to rebound to status quo ante, but of course there are evidence of progress in that regard. Now, moving away from the naira, now one word that probably will go down in the English vocabulary in 2016 is Brexit. Now, that emanated from the decision of the British to vote out of the European Union. Now, was the outcome a shock to the English? Probably not. But to the rest of the world, it was. And that was why Good Morning Nigeria took up the issue, discussing implications and challenges of the outcome to the rest of the world. And we had on that panel Ambassador Michael Arian of the European Union, as well as Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Onyama. Of course, again, presented by Kingsley and Blessing.
Once again, how rattled is the EU by the British vote to exit the EU?
Well, I think we have already issued a few statements. I think it's a combination of what we call regret and respect. Right? We very much regret this, the result of this referendum, but we have to respect it because we believe in democracy, and we have to draw the immediate consequences of this decision. I, however, like to highlight the fact that this referendum is only advisory, so it's for the British government to decide to notify clearly and to translate into, I would say, a legal decision what is so far just a political consequence of a referendum.
Is the EU eager for the UK to leave almost immediately, or wait for a 2-year period?
We are very much eager to have clarity. We want clarity in the British position, and we believe that the British government should notify as early as possible, as soon as possible, this decision to leave the country. We believe it's bad. This uncertainty is not good for the economy, for the political situation. It's not good for the UK. It's not good for Europe. It's not good for the pound. It's not good for the euro. So clarity is better.
What is the move for everyone?
Well, the mood is split because we have half the country, virtually half the country, who wanted to leave, and another half wanted to stay. So it's very, very mixed, very polarized. I voted to stay. I wanted to stay, and so I'm part of the country that are upset.
Like us, we have a whole huge number of Nigerians in the UK, even spread across the European Union as well. What implications or what do we begin to make of this decision by UK to actually leave?
Well, basically, this is a decision for the United Kingdom. They're the ones that are wearing the shoes, and they're the ones that are really going to know where it pinches. Of course, there are a large number of Nigerians in the United Kingdom. A lot of it is speculation at the moment. I think nobody really knows the full impact, of all of this. But how it impacts directly Nigeria at the moment is also not that as straightforward. But one thing is clear. As part of the Commonwealth, when the United Kingdom acceded to the European Union, there were certain preferential trade deals that were made also for the Commonwealth countries. So that deal, that economic relationship with the EU will subsist. But clearly, the United Kingdom now, we will probably have to renegotiate a bilateral trade agreement with the United Kingdom.
Well, that's an important point you just touched on, but I recall also that in discussing Nigeria's economy as well as transactions
across borders. A point has been made as to whether or not we have, I don't want to say the word sound, but a trade policy that can be advantageous to us. So is this a time for us now to begin to, as it were, rethink our trade policy worldwide?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's an opportunity. I mean, there's the European Partnership Agreement, which is already on the table, that Nigeria has not yet signed with the European Union. So we're still looking at that. But clearly now, with the UK out, the UK is probably going to have to sign trade agreements with almost the whole world now, bilaterally with each country. And these are the kinds of impacts that I'm not 100% sure that as people went in to vote, they were really thinking about. Because the reality is that this vote seems to have been focusing a lot more on immigration and probably terrorism.
Well, Brexit was it for the United Kingdom, and Brexit is still going to be. Still on global stage matters in the month of August, the visit of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, was to the country attracted the attention of Good Morning Nigeria, and we promptly got her to come on the program.
All right, let's begin, by backing up a bit and then getting to know the immediate stimulus for your visit to Nigeria this time.
The visit of Nigeria is my third visit to this giant of Africa, as we call it. It is to review with the Nigerian president, the government, our cooperation. I believe that UNESCO nowadays, as the Minister of Education said yesterday during our meeting, Mr. Adamu, that to some extent UNESCO holds the key to peace in the world through its appeal and ambition to massively invest in education, through the sciences, through the culture, the sustainable development, which is so much needed nowadays in the world, is very much our agenda. And as long as the President has very high ambitions, the change agenda of the President, which is relevant to what we also see as the future of this great country, is very much underlined in the joint communique that we signed together.
All right. That's, again, you've been in office since 2009, as you have indicated. This is your third visit to Nigeria. What is it that you have found in terms of the key priorities that we ought to be pursuing and which we are focused on?
Well, I think that the agenda of the President in terms of having a sustained economic growth, sustaining, diversifying the economy is very much linked to what we think is needed to be done. I'm talking, of course, about massive investment in literacy, about the technical vocational training, about giving skills to the young people, about looking also at the inclusion of women, about the northeast of the country, fighting extremism, how to prevent, how to create resilient communities and societies. It is very much linked to the knowledge-based societies. Yesterday morning I visited the National Open University of Nigeria, where we work also very closely. We support the capacity building, the establishment of massive online open educational courses, the so-called MOOCs. I was extremely impressed by the success of this university, by its passion, the passion of the faculty, staff, and everybody I met about education, about knowledge. I think this is the way to transform the country.
Right, indeed, this is the way to transform the country. That was the last word from the DG UNESCO. Good Morning Nigeria engaged, of course, in a discussion. Now, back home here, fighting on many fronts. It's one of the engaging discussions GMN had in the outgoing year 2016. Now, it was born out of the various security challenges in the country, especially the Boko Haram insurgency, which seemed at a time to be very difficult to contain. Now, of course, we invited the chiefs of the army as well as the Air Force, whose personnel were in the vanguard, or of course were in the forefront to decimate the insurgents. Let's join Kingsley and Rhoda on the Nigerian military fighting on many fronts.
And there is need for clear understanding that, yes, our population then, 70 million, 80 million, in the 70s, 80s, but now almost triple. So, and the conflicts have, or the, challenges, have increased also. We never knew there was any suicide, there would be any suicide bombing. Never knew this cattle rustling was at very low level. The militancy in the Niger Delta is another challenge, and now the mother of them all, the Boko Haram insurgency. This requires enough manpower, requires enough equipment, all right, and so on. But by and large, we've been able to address this challenge vis-a-vis the use of the available resources we have, as well as the judicious use of the manpower on the ground. That's our strength. And the antecedents, or what happened before this administration came in, the President of President Mahamudu, the government of President Mahamudu Buhari, and the challenges then were seen as unsurmountable. But with the commitment, the political will, and with the political direction by the government, and when we came on board, we now face those challenges, and today we're in a better position to beat our chest that, yes, the Nigerian military, the Nigerian army is living up to its billings.
All right, General Broch.
Well, in Zambiza, like I said, we conduct air operations every day into Zambiza. We use the ISR platform to give us a clear understanding of what is happening there. But I can tell you very clearly that we have degraded the capacity of these guys to really move around in Zambiza forest. The only problem that we are having there is the terrain is very, very difficult for especially our land forces to really move in there. But I can tell you, since air power is not limited by terrain, we are overhead Zambiza on a daily basis, and we keep a very close watch on what is happening to make sure that these criminals are not regrouping in that place. When we intensified bombing, sometimes towards just before the beginning of rainy season, most of them actually moved out of Zambiza forest, because sometimes you fly for hours and you don't see a single human being there. But like I said, the terrain is a big challenge, especially for any force to move, going by what somebody is suggesting there. Then in addition to that, she talked about when you see something, say something. It's very, very important. There is no way an armored tank will spot a 13-year-old girl carrying suicide bombs. Similarly, no fighter aircraft can spot a 13-year girl carrying bombs to go and detonate somewhere in the market or in. So the issue of when you see something, say something is extremely important. It is the community that will now be able to tell us where these girls are mobilized from, who is arming them, how do they get the IEDs across to these girls. And that is where the role of civilians, that's where the civilian contribution in terms of giving of intelligence is very, very important. We can have all the cameras, but we might not be able to. And besides, if you look at Zambiza itself, the size of Zambiza is about 60,000 square kilometers. And if you look at the states where this crisis is taking place, Yobe, Borno, Adamawa State, you are talking about 157,000 square kilometers. So there's no way you pick what is happening using aircraft and so on. It is the communities that have to really come up and give us the information that is required. If you look at the Southwest, yes, we were there equally in the Southwest. We were there also in the Southwest, and we are currently also in the South-South, where we are keeping very close watch of the oil and gas infrastructure in these locations.
Well, following such a successful attempts to bring on some of the girls that were taken in by these insurgents in Sambisa, despite all these challenges. The release of 21 Chibok girls, adults, going for some of the key personalities to discuss their rehabilitation. Kingsley and I also presented a program that day.
You describe for our viewers the mood in Chibok right now.
In fact, Chibok local government is one of the local governments in Nigeria which is very distinct from any other local government because we are the only local government that speaks one particular language, that is Kibak language. The mood in Chibok as at now for the release of these abducted girls is very high. People are jubilating because for over 2.5 years these girls were abducted. The situation was very terrible. Everybody seems to be scared of moving freely, but after the release of these girls, things started taking shape, especially the masses who used to fear of attack at all moments have get sense of relief and they are jubilating.
How did you receive this news?
Yeah, thank you very much. Honestly, we are very happy with this development, and on behalf of all the other parliamentarians in this country, we want to commend our leader, the president of this country, Muhammadu Buhari, for his commitment and sincerity in the rescue of these girls. Before this time, like the chairman said, there was so much tension in the country and in fact globally. People were doubting whether these girls are still alive. There was no hope at all for their return because people were wondering how such a large number of girls or human beings will be carted away and no information at all of their whereabouts. But we are happy today that there's light at the end of the tunnel by the return of these 21 girls, and we're happy about it. And we impress on the federal government to continue the negotiation so that the other girls will be returned back home safely.
As a nation and as a people, I think what has happened the last 3-4 days has been very encouraging. It says a lot about our perseverance as a people and also about the commitment and the role of the state and, of course, of the government. It's a very unfortunate situation which has happened for over 900 days at a point when hope seemed to have been lost. All of a sudden there is a resurgence of a new hope, and this speaks volume about the way we Nigerians actually react to certain situations, that afflict our country. There was despondency. Everybody thought perhaps our girls are gone for good. People started thinking whether all the advocacy roles of various national and international organizations would all come to naught. Government had consistently maintained that it had been talking and it had been employing all manner of approaches to secure this, the Chibok girls. And of course, what we had seen is a culmination and a fulfillment of what government had been promising all through.
So it's not so, though we have, it is very good that we are very happy that they have been released. But being released is not just to send them away or push them away to their communities. They need to be taken care of medically, then assessed psychologically, and also then their psychological needs, because each of these girls, they have, in as much as they have psychological trauma from this event, they have their various psychological needs, expectations, and views. So these views and these expectations, they need to be what? They need to be taken care of. So each of these girls need to be assessed psychologically. And then from there, we now know their needs, their individual needs, and then the psychological treatment goes on. The psychological treatment is it depends on the severity. You have the counseling. Then you have also some specialized psychological therapeutic techniques that are being used to handle these conditions that the girls are going through. So I expect that the federal government will put a team of credible mental health professionals who will go there and address these psychological needs of the girls.
And there will be immediate, medium, and long-term measures that will be taken so that these girls can fit back into their way of life before they were taken away. We may not get them perfectly there, but we'll get as close as possible as we can. And to explain this, I will want to lean heavily on what Dr. Chia from Makurdi said. For starters, the psychology of it all entails certain aspects of a process we cannot afford to overlook, meaning we need specialists, lead resource persons to handle each stage. The first stage is Medicare. Immediately these girls were released, they have to go through some kind of medical regimen. That is obvious. We know what they have been exposed to. After Medicare, we're going to do some psychological first aid to balance them out. And immediately after that psychological first aid, we are going to go into what we can call trauma care. This trauma care is actually specifically aimed at what we call post-trauma stress disorder. Post-trauma stress disorder can affect them in so many ways. It can even change their personality. It can affect their psychosocial being if not handled properly, and that is the immediate. In the medium range, we must respect and protect their privacy. The state of mind they are in now, they may not be able to manage the pressure of publicity and constant exposure to limelight, to the celebration, the hype and jubilation that has greeted their release. That is okay. But then it cannot be allowed to continue sustainedly. After a while, we have to take them back in behind closed doors, where experienced lead resource persons will now enter the process of bringing them back to what they should be. Having done that, the next thing beyond protecting their privacy and their persons is going to enter into what you call psychosocial rehabilitation. Psychosocial rehabilitation is actually going to teach them how to manage people responses, people reactions, probably even stigma when they go out there.
Without, of course, overstating it, that was a very robust conversation there. Rehabilitating released Chibok school girls. Now, still talking, of course, security. You know, security in 2016 was of public discussion. Everywhere you go, it was the issue of public discussion that was being discussed. And if you take a look at the priority given to it in the 2017 appropriation bill, it is still an issue of priority. But as soon as the new Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, took over from former IGP Solomon Arasi to continue to reposition the police force for effective services, Good Morning Nigeria was the first program he appeared on to speak on his agenda for the force. Guess who presented? Kingsley, and of course, yours sincerely here.
We have to change, we have to work on our image with the members of the public. And that's what I said, that the police henceforth to be guided by the core values of policing internationally. And these core values are integrity, respect to diversity, compassion, ensuring rule of law in all our activities, and accountability. Right. And also, we are going to operate in line of the democratic policing, which is responsive police force, a representative police force, and like you said, an accountable police force in all our actions and activities. And I think that's the main issue. That will form the main focus of this administration. With that, obviously, I believe that by the time we ensure that we have the confidence, the respect of the public, other things will naturally follow. And obviously, I align some of the activities I have in line of, for the men, because we have to take care of their welfare. If you look at the trends of crime in Nigeria has reduced greatly. One is due to the support of the members of the public. Two, our boys, our officers and men are now up and doing. And we are trying to create, we are trying to reorganize and re-strategize the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. If you look at it, in the past, even in the Northeast, these SARS have been doing a very great job, complementing the activities of the military to deal with some of these terrorists. We feel that, empowering them and restructuring them, very soon I'm going to launch them, obviously next week. We're going to launch the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. And subsequently, by this launching, we are looking at the possibility of providing them vehicles, all of them, so that they can be able to move around, they can be able to take care of our streets and nook and crannies of this country. I'm sure with this recognized SARS, we are going to have a different face of policing. In addition to the organization, the unit, we are also going to train them. We are going to subject them to training and retraining. I'm talking with some members of this CSO, civil society organization, to see how they can come in to sort of complement our efforts in reorganizing these SARS by training them in these fundamental human rights and other aspects of policing, in line with international policing ethics. Obviously, there are others. There are other units that we're working on. The X Squad, that's the Police Anti-Corruption Crusader. I'm assuring that we are launching them in 2 or 3 weeks' time, and we're expecting that the Commander-in-Chief will come up. Will be around to give the necessary moral addition to these boys. The SARS, the X Squad, they are going to be almost 3,000. And we are trying to see how we provide mobility for them to make them mobile and effective. And by the time this unit is on, it's also going to check the corruption both within the police and outside the police. Because, the responsibility of police involves, tackling vices in the society. So we are going to tackle this X Squad, which is going to be our anti-corruption crusaders in trying to, sanitize and sensitize the community. Obviously, in a week or two, we are going to see the launching of these new units. In addition to most of these activities, all these we are trying to do in order to change the face of the police, to make the police very responsible, to make the police very effective in the performance of their duty.
Like this lofty vision of yours. But in over 50 years of the police force trying to do that, you are the 19th Inspector General of Police for Nigeria. And for one who is well-traveled, you've also served as a UN Police Commissioner. What exactly do you think is wrong with our structure as a force, as the Nigerian police force, that is not helping us to grow like you have seen internationally?
What I want to say here is that somebody asked me, which police system do you prefer? Is it the centralized police or the state police? I told them what the police needs are just the material to work. In the United Nations, we have 1 vehicle to 2 police officers. 1 vehicle to 2 police officers. Of course, in this country, what do you call it? The ratio. What we need are logistics. And what we are trying to do now is, apart from the government, federal government, which have that responsibility, we are trying to see how we can partner with the various arms of government to see how they can come in to support the police force. What we need is logistics for the men to do their job. And with that, I'm telling you, everything will be in line.
Yes, the police are our friends, and we'll still extend that hand of fellowship and friendship to them. And talking about our friends, some of them have been responding.
Of course, they're blessing quite a lot of the tweets that have come in. You want me to start off?
You start off.
All right, I'll start off. I'll start with Ojo Olaiton, and Ojo Olaiton tweets. NTA German, you people are really trying in your presentation throughout the year, and you need to buckle up in this coming year. I wish you the best. You can rest assured that we will. We'll keep getting better, blessing.
Oh, we should get better. I'm from Antai Ukpong. He says it's been a wonderful program all year. Thumbs up, Kingsley Osadolo and Claire Abdurazak. Well, but Claire spells it with Z, not S. Adelabu. Well, you're not wrong in some places. But moving on. From Ima Osapolo, who said, NTA GMN, really appreciate your program. Keep it up.
All right, just to add to Anti-Ukmong's tweet, like I keep telling our viewer, it's not just a one-man team here. It's a whole lot of work that go into the production of Good Morning Nigeria. There are quite a number of people you don't get to see: the cameramen, the directors, the producers, and so many people, the researchers. And so it's all thumbs up to all those who make this program thick. Thank you for your comments. And back to the tweet, Akano Abdul Kabri tweets, some Nigerians in connivance with some staff of banks who are still allowed to sell forex are part of the problems we're facing.
Well, as if this person is actually reading Claire's mind. Ibrahim Tudu says, GMN, the team is exceptional. Presenters and directors are hardworking. Can we please get to see some faces of those behind the camera on the screen?
We will need our producers, our bosses' permissions to do that. But believe me, you get to see them. And soon, too.
Okay.
All right.
I'm still with Ibrahim.
Okay.
GMN, Kingsley, Claire, Blessing, well done. Rhoda will be mad. So, Rhoda, you're included. At least for the faces you see. I've fulfilled an eventful 2016. Hope to see you in 2017 by the grace of God. Happy New Year in advance. Thank you, Ibrahim.
All right, there's a second tweet coming in from Akano Abdul Kabir, and he says, Nigerians who are bent on importation should get items to export and use the proceeds to import the items they are bent on importing.
And final one from Festus Akimboyewa says, it's a big thing that NTA GMN is making impact in current affairs arena, and that there is provision for social media input makes it very unique. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for those tweets, and please keep them coming. The program is still on. Good Morning Nigeria, review of some of the engaging issues discussed on this program in the outgoing year 2016. We'll take a short break, and we'll come back. We'll continue.
NTA Properties Investment Company Limited, a subsidiary of the Nigerian Television Authority, specializes in creating comfort in all areas of life, such as real estate investments, that is, land, houses, and office spaces, mass leasing, savings and loan scheme, household items and car loans, and so much more. Other information and entertainment services include Property in Style, a TV program that airs on the network service of the NTA, and also Property Connect, a nationwide magazine. Our priority is to bridge poverty gaps and sustain quality welfare of our clients. Partner with us and watch us help you grow. Pay us a visit today at the NTA headquarters permanent site, Area 11 Garki, Abuja, or our Lagos office at number 15 Awolowo Road, Ikoyi, Lagos. For more information, visit our website on www.ntaproperties.com.ng, or you can email us on ntap2000@yahoo.com. Call us on 080-2316-3474 or 080-6939-5185 or 070-3189-0555. NTA Properties Investment Company Limited, the much needed help at your doorstep.
Just tuned in, still on Good Morning Nigeria, and we're taking a look at the engaging excerpts of some of our editions of the program in the course of the year 2016. Yeah, we'll move from economy to security now to the aspect of corruption. Worried over the alleged corrupt practices in Nigerian universities, Good Morning Nigeria looked into the issue. Seasoned educationists and administrators joined to x-ray the issue. Kingsley and I think Claire actually anchored the program.
Let's get your perspective on JVs, joint ventures. What is it, and what? Let's get your perspective on.
Yes, we talked about corruption, but this time around in the judiciary.
All right, Blessing, I think that was actually Rhoda and Kingsley, of course, taking the discussion on, the JVs, that's the joint venture. So let's take that now.
Get your perspective on JVs, joint ventures. What is it, and what was it actually meant to do in our oil and gas industry?
Thank you very much. I appreciate being with you this morning. Joint venture arrangement is just one of the forms in which partners could come together to share the risk in the oil and gas industry. However, if you look at the historical context from Nigerian case, history can help us. Originally, Nigeria did not really want to do anything joint venturing. They just wanted to do royalty and tax with the concession. Perhaps wanting to be member of OPEC, which is nothing bad in itself, which requires us to be able to have control of the bulk of the production in Nigeria, is what led us to joining joint venture. Because originally, Ajib wanted Nigeria to have joint venture partner with them, and Nigeria said no, which was good then. So at that particular time, there was reason for us to have majority control of oil and gas production in Nigeria. And of course, at that particular time, I don't think we are technology savvy, and the capacity was not there for us to do what others did, which was full nationalization. So if we put that in context and then look at what we've done over the years with JV, JV certainly has been very beneficial to Nigeria with respect to meeting our economic need over the years. And originally, the money that we derived from the oil and gas industry was well spent on developing infrastructure and even building human capacity. Very many of my generation got good education as a result of money generated from JV arrangement. So it was good. But nothing should remain static forever.
The idea of JV, like Prof just explained and my colleague here, initially was quite novel and fantastic. And at that time, it was implemented with the overall interest of making sure that the revenues also translate to national development. But what we have found from our reports is completely different.
I think there's a lot of misconception, misunderstanding about the processes of JV cash call. And I also think that, especially with due respect to NIT, the focus of their audit is misplaced. And I dare say that they probably do not understand the workings of joint venture operations. You see, the problem with joint venture is that unlike the NLNG, where you have the NLNG is also a joint venture, but it is an incorporated joint venture. So the operator, there is no question, the operator is allowed to take decisions and process, and including expenditure funding, based on profit considerations, no more, no less. But you take the joint venture. In 2008, the government said our focus is domestic gas, IPP and domestic gas. And they asked the operators to change their budget such that they will accommodate development of domestic gas. That is probably not a profit-making decision. So you see, the issues are sometimes we have goal contradictions.
Council, there would appear to be corruption in the Nigerian judiciary.
All right, of course, let's now talk about corruption in the Nigerian judiciary. And of course, that happened in 2016. It was in this year, in fact, for the first time in the history of this country, that 7 judicial officers were, of course, either charged to court or prosecuted on allegations of corruption. Let's take a listen to that, of course, discussion right now.
Council, there would appear to be corruption in the Nigerian judiciary. But how deep is the rot, Professor Azangi?
Well, how deep is the rot is the question. And for me, we must start from the premise of determining the number of judges or justices that we have in the country against the backdrop of the number that we're questioning their integrity. And I think at the last check, we must have about 1,000+ judges, justices in the country. And if we have about 20, 21 or thereabout, or even 50 that we are questioning their integrity one way or the other, I don't think that will be enough for us to say that the Nigerian judiciary is corrupt. But that does not suggest that we don't have corrupt judges. We do. But given the percentage, which is maybe about less than 1%, the Nigerian judiciary cannot be described as corrupt. But we have corrupt judges.
Yeah, right from when I was president of the Nigerian Bar Association, I was one of the first to say that there existed corruption in the Nigerian judiciary. And this doesn't come as a surprise, because the judiciary is part of the Nigerian society. And as recently as a few months ago, the entire country has been described as fantastically corrupt by a former British Prime Minister. So if the judiciary, a microcosm of Nigeria, is said, which we know and we cannot deny, has corrupt or a great deal of corruption, then of course you will perforce find some elements that have found their way into the system in the judiciary and who manifest these acts of corruption. But I approach it from a different angle, that corruption is not limited to cash and carry. Corruption indeed transcends a wide range of issues. First of all, the appointment system of judges. This man-no-man business of appointing judges, of which the very leaders at the high echelon of all arms of government are guilty of it. People are in a rush to put their proteges in the bench, and some know next to nothing. Such a person comes with the mindset of trying to advance either his mentor's cause or the cause of his own prosperity. Now, it is this group of judges that give the judiciary a bad name.
What, in your opinion, should be the role of civil society in seeking to tackle corruption in the judiciary, guarantee the independence of the judiciary, and therefore strengthen public confidence in this all-important institution of our state?
Well, I think part of the challenge has been the too much reverence with which we treat judicial officers. That's coming from the fact that they were almost at a point treated like deputy gods. So advocacy has never been directed at judiciary in the way and manner we have faced other institutions and agencies. So the call right now will be to see that we should begin to take interest in what happens in the judiciary more than ordinarily. There was a time the state of Georgia had to completely dissolve their police force. So if it will get to a point where people will have to leave the judiciary because they are scared, we should be able to take that and train new set of people who will deliver justice to the people. People are talking about public confidence. This is not the occasion in which public confidence has been reduced by the judiciary. It's been there. The SSS in Ekiti, during the Ekiti election, broke into people's hotels, broke doors, brought out observers and people who were. There was no comment from anywhere. They beat, and the election before that time, even members of the National Human Rights Commission were beaten, and by these same people. So the conversation should transcend whether it's a judge, whether it's. We must begin to talk about how we civilianize our security agencies, how we can begin to hold them accountable for professional misconduct, for uncivilized methods, for Philistine methods of dealing with issues, whether it has to do with a judge or a bricklayer. Until we get to that point where we are able to holistically look at issues beyond, the professional arrogance that you see, in the sense in which the constitution making, when you talk about constitution, the prevalence of lawyers and judicial people in constitution making gives them an advantage in putting something ordinarily that should be a professional, what deals with professional discipline, inserting it into the constitution and arrogating to it the power beyond, for instance, medical and dental council, that also have responsibility to discipline their members if, for instance, they are involved in medical negligence. So this conversation needs to be holistic. Is it because it's judges? Is it because they are special people that they cannot be brought to account?
Again, it should be pointed out also that there has been case also that there should be reforms. Part of the reforms which people have advocated is the restructuring of the NJC, to make it more viable and positioned to discipline judges as they are supposed to do. Part of the reasons which the DSS gave as predicating their very brutal action, which I'll define as such, is that the NJC had been a little awkward, so to speak, in getting these judges to be prosecuted. And that is why we're saying that the restructuring should start by the composition of the NJC itself. Sitting justices and judges should not be members because they could even be subject of investigation and what have you. And if you go beyond that, apart from that, we are saying the Constitution be also amended to the effect that the judiciary should be self-regulated. And that's the veritable measure to insulate it totally and completely from political interference. In the cases that we have seen judges being exposed or being vulnerable, they are usually, most cases are in election petitions. Because one way or the other, if this person does not give a judgment in your favor, the next thing, either you go to the NJC or try to do this and that. And judges, they are human beings, we should remember. You cannot ascribe perfection to them or infallibility. That's the only thing as scripture you give to God.
Still talking corruption, it wasn't just with the judiciary that the worry was with. That of the Nigerian universities also took our attention on Good Morning Nigeria as we got seasoned educationists and administrators to x-ray the issue. Kingsley and I actually anchored the program that very day.
You let us into the nature and texture and perhaps the depth of the allegations of underhand dealings in the Ivory Towers.
Well, it's a whole lot of petitions from across board, students, lecturers, parents, contractors. And when I got in 2011, November, when I thought it was getting out of hand, I decided to do, something much more sustainable. So we got into a relationship with the Nigerian Universities Commission and set up a study to look at all the petitions we've been receiving in respect of admissions, in respect of examinations, contracts administration, and all that. And that was how we came up with the university system study in 2013. And my attitude then was that if you didn't know exactly what you were going to be looking at, then you probably would not be able to do any change in the system. And it paid off because what we did was to do a pilot study, take one federal university, take one state and one private university, without thinking if they were guilty or not. We just wanted to have a field and a touch of what was going on. And incidentally, I heard you introduce Professor Okebukola just now. Right. And he was the lead member of the research team.
Prof, you listened to Mr. Anta here. Of course, he did say that you were part of that team that did a study on whether or not universities are also aiding and abetting corruption and to what extent that they have been able to do that. Are we just blabbing or is it a serious threat?
We are not babbling here. The thrust for ICPC and AUC is that of prevention. I think the maxim here is prevention is better than cure. And I appreciate ICPC's thrust in this direction. It is not going all over the place catching the thieves, but ensuring that in the first instance, the thieves are not appetized, to go to steal. So the prevention template that Mr. Eponta mentioned is the heart of the matter. We're not babbling. We found quite a huge load of corrupt practices in different areas. It's like an octopus with 4 pairs of legs. That is, like 8, found in 8 areas, as mentioned in the report that you heard earlier. We found that a lot of corrupt practices were going on in admission, in research, in financial management, in teaching, and several others.
Professor Elemeka, I would like you to give us, what your experience is or what your insight is into what has been described as corruption in Nigeria's academia, say the university system. Who or what category of persons are most likely involved in this corrupt act, so that the presumption is not ab initio to say that, oh, no, professors. Now, is it academic and non-academic staff? And if you're also talking about promotions A and P, does it involve members of the governing council, which of course is the owner of the institution?
Thank you. I think Professor Kebukola's 8-point analysis is quite apt. I guess they can actually be broken down further. But I think, as he has said, it's obvious that people will be corrupt in the area in which they hold some kind of power. So in terms of financial corruption, for example, you won't find a lot of academics in that wing of the of corruption. But if you're talking about plagiarism, you're talking about sex for mark and the rest of it, obviously academics will be more involved in those areas. If you're talking about admission, I think it's jointly shared by both academic and non-academic. But I think what we are seeing about the staff is a symptom of a deeper problem. I think the corruption itself starts much higher than the staff. For example, we hear in the university that you can't become a vice chancellor today. Substantial number of them get into the office through corruption. And therefore, if they get into office by corruption, they are already compromised in terms of their ability to discipline people within the system.
Well, I think it is important to also emphasize, extend the point he made about international dimension of corruption. So it's not given the impression that it is Nigeria alone that suffers from corruption. In 2009, the American universities, both public and private, came out with quite a desperate proposition that any student who is caught, who is guilty of corruption, they should put that in the script, in any, what do you call it, any certificate that they have. You should be included there that he or she is a cheat. The Russians, as Professor Kebukola mentioned, have really been very hit by that problem. In 2008, 2009, they had 7.5 million students in their universities. 50% of them were suspected to have been admitted on the basis of corruption. India has already been mentioned. South Africa has been having the same problem that NUC has been trying to clear. That is by, I think, 2015, 42 fraudulent universities were closed, who were giving fake degrees. Some of the universities were actually established and ran from the United States, and they were awarding degrees in 15 months. Well, some of them in 15 days, actually. So it's a worldwide problem that has to be tackled.
All right. It was also this year, 2016, that the administration launched the Change Begins With Me campaign. Now, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, was on hand to expatiate on this.
Well, when we said we are going to change, when the APC said there would be change, what we meant was change from impunity to accountability. We meant change from lack of transparency to transparency. We meant change from our, lack of patriotism to patriotism. We meant change from lack of industry to industry. And actually, what we are launching today, on Thursday, which we have tagged Change Begins With Me, is a national reorientation, campaign aimed at changing the way we do things, aimed at changing the way we think about things, aimed at making us more patriotic, more industrious, more diligent, more honest. And we believe that this change must begin with each and every one of us, because we believe that being patriotic means also buying made in Nigeria products. Being patriotic means not destroying or vandalizing, pipelines. Being nationalistic means that you take government property as your own. So the whole idea is that we must change the way we do things, and that change would begin with each and every one of us. Like a philosopher said, we cannot be doing things the same way and expect a different result. And unlike before, we do not think that this change should be limited to only those in government or those at the top. Even the taxi driver who does not obey traffic regulation must change the way he does things. Change will begin with him. The danfo driver who drives under the influence of alcohol must renounce that. Change begins with him. Then you now go to the university. The lecturer who would sell his marks for sex, change must begin with him. The student who joins cultism, change must begin with him. And we believe that if each and every one of us, if we change the way we do things which is wrong today, like the pharmacist who sells fake drugs, the consequence is that innocent people lose their lives. Change begins with them. And you can see that when we say things are wrong with Nigeria, it's not just with government, it's not just with those who are high, it's with everybody. And that is kind of campaign which we are running basically on persuading people on why they must be more industrious, why they must be more patriotic, why they must be more nationalistic in their approach.
Yes, sir. That was a campaign on Begins With Me. And there was another change experience, well, a strange one in the environment for the people of Jaba local government area of Kaduna State in September, as they experienced what was known as the earth tremor. Well, let's find out how the experts actually looked into that with the chairman of the local government as invited by Good Morning Nigeria. What was it like?
Thank you very much. On Sunday, 9th of September, at about 10:30, 11 a.m., while in service, we had a shaking of the foundations of the church building and a sound which lasted for about 5-6 seconds. And we were wondering what the problem is. Is it a bomb? Is it an explosion? We didn't really know what happened. At about 1, a second vibration, even louder, more intense than the first one, occurred. And so that put us on check. Everybody became scared. The entire people in Kwai area were all outside and were wondering what is happening. And quickly, we got the Nigerian police force, the vigilantes, to go around the local government area to establish the fact that it is not an attack on Jaba local government. That was established. And we don't also have any mining activity. That was again established. So we resulted to a position of an earth movement, which is referred to as earth tremor. And so immediately I got in touch with His Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasser Ahmed El-Rufai, to report the situation. And he moved immediately with a prompt action by sensitizing the relevant bodies and authority to quickly investigate the matter. The people of Jaba were restless because we continue to have reoccurrence of this vibration. In the last 96 hours, we've had about 16 vibrations. So we have people who are scared. We don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. Should we flee out of the town? And everybody is concerned. We have been receiving calls from our people in the diaspora all over the country, and everybody is showing a lot of concern, and we are worried. We are worried because this thing happened sometime in Ikara local government, sometime in July, and it also happened in 2009 in Ogun. And so it is for us a wake-up call, or what we call an early warning signal.
All right, that was, of course, the strange experience that the people of Chaba experienced in 2016. Now, let's look at, of course, the economy in 2017. Wednesday, 15 December 2016, President Muhammadu Buhari presented the 2017 appropriation bill to the National Assembly. And of course, a day after, that's Thursday, Good Morning Nigeria ran a series of programs on it. Let's take a listen or listen in to one out of the 5-part program.
Is it that we can look forward to in 2017, first against the background of what the President has presented and the reality that we are faced with, latest figures coming out from the National Bureau of Statistics?
Yeah, thank you very much. The good news out of the President's speech as it relates to the economic summit is that there are 5 critical statements or significant statements in that budget speech that speak directly out of the summit recommendations. 1, we now have a national economic recovery and growth plan. We advocated that at the summit and insisted that it had to be ready before December. President announced it's now there. The President also announced that in 2017 there will be a stronger effort to have a handshake between fiscal and monetary policy. We pushed hard on that at the summit. Now we've heard him say it's going to happen. 3rd, we called for a pragmatic action on the Niger Delta crisis in order to restore crude oil production to 2.2 million barrels per day and be able to shore up our revenue and our reserves and ultimately affect the foreign exchange situation. That seems to be happening. The President made some strong commitments in that direction. National Economic Council also said something along those lines. These are positive outlooks for next year. Again, significantly, we heard something from the President that we hadn't heard since he became President, which is a stronger effort from government to invite private sector to invest in infrastructure.
There are a number of things we need to put in place. There is no way you want to say you want to really reinvigorate the economy, you want to reflate the economy without having substantial concrete actions on those sectors that are considered to be driving the economy. And particularly, a number of things have been announced on agriculture, a number of things have been announced on what we call small-scale enterprises, especially the bailout, about 50 billion bailout that is supposed to be done on that. But essentially, and I think we're moving in the right direction, Nigeria has never been bereaved of fantastic budget pronouncements, but the missing link is implementation. My take is that now we've had the President, the government has pronounced what the projections are. What are the implementation strategy? Those are the key points. And I'm so happy about the principles underlining the budget of recovery and economic growth. One, you mentioned about issue of local content policy. Now, that is one of the areas we've got to really pay adequate attention on.
Dr. Nafis Dama, what are your thoughts on, first, what we're going through, and then what the outlook is for 2017 against the background of the key markers that have been taken on by the other guests?
Well, it's a very good attempt, particularly if you look at the budget and the distributional components between recurrent and capital. There is a slight increase in the capital component this year relative to what it was last year. But the key problem, from my own understanding, which I have voiced out severally, and I will continue to voice it out, is that a developing country with 180 million people cannot be put on the path of sustainable development through ad hoc measures and strategies. This government is 1.5 years old, and up till today, nobody can be able to tell you we have a medium-term national development plan. The budgeting that is done in this context, from my own understanding, is trying to address issues on an ad hoc basis. And I think it's too long for this government to come up with a medium-term national development plan so that we know sector by sector what are the key challenges, what need to be put in place. And you see, the danger is that if you are just doing ordinary budgeting in the absence of coherent national development plan, the clear linkages and reinforcement and mutual complementarities that need to exist to drive the economy towards sustainable development may not be there. You may end up addressing issues from a purely sectoral perspective without actually taking into consideration the ripple negative or positive effects associated with spending in one sector or the other. But be that as it may, we have to give the government some element of credit, particularly the fact that is spending more than we have anticipated, even though there is a significant component of borrowing that will be used to finance the budget. But in reality, when you are in recession, particularly for an economy that is public sector driven like ours, the only option that is available is for the government to spend so much money so that it can put the economy back to the path of sustainable development and move out of the recession.
And the second part, or one of the parts, again, at the Nigeria's Economic Outlook, featuring a special advisor to the President on economic matters, Dr. Adeyemi Dikpeolu.
What are the primary drivers anticipated for economic recovery in 2017 against the background of what some experts have described as a not too salutary performance of the 2016 budget?
Thank you very much. I think if you notice from the President's budget speech, he did emphasize that the budget was guided by principles that would be in the economic recovery and growth plan, which will be adopted before the end of this year. So in that context, the drivers for next year, I think broadly, would be first of all to restore growth. And by restoring growth, we're talking about having increased monetary and financial stability. We're talking about improving fiscal performance, and we're talking about leveraging the real sector of the economy, agriculture, manufacturing, solid minerals, services, and indeed the downstream oil and gas sector. But it also, as you would see also, focuses on investing in the Nigerian people, both through normal health and education interventions, but as well the social inclusion programs of government, including the Empower programs, the conditional cash transfers, and the like. But in addition to that, beginning to build a competitive economy in terms of the ease of doing business, as well as providing the critical infrastructure that will facilitate and enhance business operations.
I think we need to understand that the monetary policy for 2017 does not have a life of its own. It's going to be strictly anchored on the program, the economic programs of the government. So it's going to strictly derive from what the government says it's going to do. If the government says we're going to inject 7.298 trillion into the economy, monetary policy will be focused on that amount of money that will be injected into the economy. And from the budget speech of Mr. President, he gave clear indication that government was working very assiduously towards policy harmonization, both fiscal, monetary policy, and trade policy. It was very clearly written there in the budget speech. So monetary policy would have to key in within that framework, but bearing in mind also that while monetary policy will work towards growth, it has a key mandate of stabilizing prices. We would not want to allow that mandate to be lost, that we would need to ensure that prices, increase in prices do not overwhelm the take-home of the average Nigerian.
Some of the
indices or drivers are outside the country's control. And the 2017 budget is predicated on growth and recovery. And that in itself is dependent on the ability to finance the 7.3 trillion naira budget. And that again depends on the performance, of the oil sector in terms of meeting the production targets of 2.2 million barrels per day, and also having fairly high and stable oil prices.
I don't really see anything wrong with the budget. The budget has been put in place on time. We have it in the National Assembly. Hopefully they should consider that, and let's get a quick turnaround time so that we avoid the mess that happened this year, and we can focus on the real issues. For me, the real issues are the policies. Another interesting perspective on the budget was the fact that the Senate President said that there are 11 bills that will go in support of this budget to be able to help the recovery. It's important that we understand what those bills are and what the expansionary policies are for growth. Because at the end of the day, the budget is one thing. The most important things would be the monetary policy, the fiscal policy, the investment policy, the trade and finance policies that will help with the implementation of these budgets. That is what we want articulated.
You've listened to the other guests, and 2017, for most people, have different feelings. Let's take a look at some of your own projections as well as interventions to be worked at.
I think the professor in Benin has articulated what exactly is my perspective, and there are three things. One, Nigerians were very good at putting documents together. We're good at bringing thinking together and put it on paper and assume that it's going to work. Two key things that are very important are execution. We are very, very bad at execution. If we can execute, and execute are the key issues for me that we need to look at in what we have as a budget. Secondly is that, in execution, you also have to have time. Time is of essence. People have to be confident, have to have hope, and understand that things are working and are going to work along the timeline. What I see is a budget of hope, and I think it's of growth, but my biggest challenge around what typically happens is around execution. So the MDAs, like he said, have to be, well established, have to be well skilled, have to be well manned for us to be able to execute them. Because it's a different thing to say.
All right, of course, that was the Nigeria Economic Outlook, of course, 2 out of the 5-part program we had to do with. Now, how much of a problem is skin bleaching, and why is it a subject that Good Morning Nigeria had to deal with? Let's find out from Rhoda and Kingsley.
They're very fair. I want to bleach. You see them, they will go ahead trying to mix different kinds of gel, different kinds of, local, sometimes they even use some local things that is very, very harsh to the skin. Suddenly you see someone that was very dark and she started bleaching.
Dark or black?
Very, very black, not dark. Then she will start bleaching. Sometimes they want to do it overnight. Okay. In such cases, you see them with burnt skin, with skin discoloration, with different kinds of skin, reaction. Then people say, I want to lighten up a little bit. Well, for those that want to lighten up a little bit, because if you're a naturally fair color person, in this part of Africa, there's a lot of sun. And maybe if you're not using the cosmetics that contain sun protection, you discover as a fair color person, you start getting dark. So some of them say, okay, I want to tone up, or I want to lighten up my skin. I want to get the original skin that I used to have before. Then for skin whitening, it's also like a skin lightening therapy. So it depends on individual. Some ladies are really crazy about becoming very fair. Oh, my husband loves fair women. Whenever I go to church or go to places with him, his eyes are on fair women, things like that.
I know a lot, like in my practice, we see like if I had 10 patients, 5 out of those 10 would come in with skin issues or wanting to be lighter. And
for 2016. But before we go, yes, people have been making their reactions known, and we quickly look into them. Dele Jack Solomon, NTA GMN, how do you stabilize the naira when the national cake had been looted? Effects of cost push inflation, high unemployment and insecurity.
Okay, Ibrahim Tunde tweets, keep the fire burning GMN team. But how Buhari, Saraki, and Dogara escaped your net in 2016 is not clear. Let's have them in 2017. All right, of course, if you should be an ardent viewer of this program. In 2015, of course, we had one of them here.
Okay, from Shadow X, the fall of the naira is a blessing in disguise. Nigerians now looking towards less importation. People now buy made in Nigeria goods.
And Chika Ugo tweets, very salient issues are discussed on this platform. But it looks like after the views are thrown into the waste bin, after that, the views are thrown into the waste bin. Well, Chika, let me just quickly say to you, yes, the papers containing your contents are thrown into the dustbin, but the content, of course, form the basis of our brainstorming sessions.
That's well taken. Victor Hoyosumwa, you guys are great. Really enjoyed your program. I'm catching up on some I missed during the year. Keep it up. Happy 2017.
Okay, same to you, Victor. Frank Chinonso tweets, not forgetting Rhoda. You people should keep on informing Nigerians, as this Good Morning Nigeria is my breakfast program. I enjoy it.
And from Mike Anyako, NCAGMN is still the best program in Nigeria. Please keep it up. We are very proud of you. We need more of these in the coming year.
All right, Lanre Shobola, your team is doing a good job. Keep it up.
Chibuzo Everestos, a special thanks to you all, the presenters and all the crew of NTA-GMN. You all are doing a wonderful job. We'll wait for more in 2017.
And Yonden tweets, NTA-GMN, God bless GMN. I love the program.
Festus Akimboyewa, I will certainly be following GMN in 2017 and looking forward to robust discussions on political and social economic issues.
And Chibuza Everestus, the program is educative and insightful. Placed in 2017, tried to talk about church and tradition. I wish you all a blissful 2017. But there's this one we must take just before we go.
Dele Jack Solomon. Now, go.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think NTA should increase the condition of service or remuneration of the NTA GMN crew. I like that. Thank you. This is because you are fantastically done well.
All right, we have other tweets now, but I'm afraid we cannot take all of them, but we do appreciate all of you, and we wish you all also a blissful 2017. That's how we end our conversation now, but we round up the program with a look at the weather forecast for the rest of today.
As for Friday, I am Olichku Anupu. It's been a dusty atmosphere across the country, and we do not anticipate more change in this weather phenomenon in the next 24 hours, as we expect thick dust haze to